The family dinner started like any other night. Vance sat at the head of the table, scrolling through his phone while Evelyn and Carter recounted their days. I placed the last dish on the table, soaking in the warmth of having my children home. "This looks delicious, Mom," Evelyn said with a smile. Vance finally looked up from his phone. "We need to talk." An uneasy silence fell over the table. Vance cleared his throat. "I'm leaving your mother, for Fleur." The words hung in the air like a thick fog. Evelyn's fork clattered against her plate. Carter's eyes widened, his mouth agape. "What are you saying?" I whispered, gripping the edge of the table. "I'm in love with Fleur," Vance stated plainly. "We're moving in together." Rage bubbled up inside me. "How could you do this to our family?" Vance shrugged. "It just happened. I'm sorry, but I can't keep living a lie." Evelyn shot up from her chair. "You arrogant bastard, after everything Mom has done for you?" "Evelyn, please." I reached for her hand, but she yanked it away. Carter stayed silent, his eyes darting between us. "I want a divorce," Vance declared. "We'll divide up the assets fairly." I wanted to scream, to hurl the plates across the room, but I simply nodded, numb with shock and humiliation. Vance stood abruptly. "I'll be staying at a hotel tonight." He turned and walked out, leaving our family shattered in his wake. After Vance left, an eerie silence consumed the house. Evelyn paced back and forth, her fists clenched. Carter stared blankly at his plate, pushing food around with his fork. "I can't believe this is happening," I finally said, my voice cracking. Evelyn whirled towards me. "How could you not see this coming, Mom? Dad's been different for months." I flinched at her words. Deep down I knew she was right. The late nights at the office, the emotional distance, I had ignored all the signs. "I'm so sorry," I whispered, burying my face in my hands. I was in denial. Carter placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "This isn't your fault, Mom. Dad's the one who threw it all away." We sat in silence for several long minutes, the weight of Vance's betrayal hanging over us. Finally, I stood up. "I need some air," I said, grabbing my jacket. The cool evening breeze provided little solace as I wandered aimlessly through the park. Couples strolled by, hand in hand, with their love a cruel reminder of what I had lost. "Marianne, is that you?" I turned to see Jessica Wilkins, an old friend from my book club days. "Oh, Jess!" "Hi," I said, attempting a smile. "Are you all right?" She studied my face with concern. "You look devastated." I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Tears streamed down my cheeks as the hurt and humiliation washed over me anew. Jess pulled me into a gentle hug. "Tell me what's wrong." Through broken sobs, I recounted Vance's heartless revelation over dinner, how he had been having an affair, how he was leaving me for his young coworker. Jess's eyes widened in disbelief. "That rat! I knew something was off when I saw him and that little tramp all over each other at the gardener's barbecue last month." My heart stopped. "What did you say?" "Vance and some girl half his age. They were all over each other, kissing and groping like lovesick teenagers." Jess shook her head in disgust. I couldn't believe my eyes. White-hot anger surged through me, replacing the sadness. Vance's lies and deception played on a sickening loop in my mind. "He's going to pay for this," I said through gritted teeth. "I'll make sure he loses everything." Jess squeezed my arm reassuringly. "You're damn right he will. We'll take that bastard down together." For the first time since Vance's revelation, I felt a glimmer of hope. My humiliation would be his downfall. The next morning, I sat across from Amanda Green, the most cutthroat divorce attorney in town. Her office was sleek and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. "So, Mrs. Lawrence," she began, "walk me through the details." I took a deep breath, recounting Vance's cold declaration over dinner. Amanda's expression hardened as I described his affair with Fleur, the younger woman from his office. "That snake," she muttered, jotting notes. "We'll make sure he doesn't slither away with a dime more than he deserves." Relief washed over me. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't alone in this battle. "What's our next move?" I asked, leaning forward. Amanda smirked. "First, we need evidence, proof of his infidelity, any financial paper trails, everything we can use to crush him in court." I thought back to Jess's revelation about witnessing Vance and Fleur's shameless public display. I might have a lead on that. Amanda's eyes lit up. "Excellent. Get me anything and everything you can find." As I left her office, a newfound determination coursed through me. Vance wanted to play dirty? Two could play that game. Over the next few weeks, I followed his every move like a private investigator. I documented his late nights at the office and compiled witness statements from our friends who had seen him and Fleur together. One fateful evening, I caught him leaving a shady motel with Fleur in tow. I snapped photos as they kissed passionately, unaware of my presence. Sickening, but exactly the ammunition I needed. With each piece of damning evidence, my anger grew, at Vance's deception, at the years of lies. But more than anything, I fixated on the diamond tennis bracelet he had gifted Fleur, no doubt purchased with our family's money. When I finally presented everything to Amanda, her cold eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "This is perfect," she purred, flipping through the photos and documents. "We have him dead to rights." I clenched my fists, fueled by a burning sense of justice. "I want to destroy him, Amanda, utterly and completely." She leaned back in her chair with a wicked grin. "Don't worry, Mrs. Lawrence. By the time we're through, Vance won't know what hit him." Over the next few weeks, I became obsessed with gathering evidence against Vance. Every waking moment was consumed by thoughts of catching him in the act, of compiling an undeniable case against his misdeeds. One evening, as I tailed him to yet another seedy motel rendezvous with Fleur, I noticed another car in the parking lot. A sleek black sedan. Curiosity got the better of me, and I waited to see who would emerge. To my surprise, a woman around my age stepped out, her face contorted with rage as she slammed the car door shut. I watched her storm into the motel's lobby, fists clenched at her sides. Without thinking, I got out of my car and followed her inside. She was pacing back and forth, muttering curses under her breath. "Are you okay?" I ventured, approaching cautiously. She whirled around, eyes blazing. "Do I look okay to you?" I raised my palms in surrender. "You just seem upset." The woman scoffed bitterly. "That's an understatement. I just caught my lying, cheating bastard of a husband checking into this dump with his mistress." My jaw dropped. "You're kidding." "I wish I was," she spat. 10 years of marriage down the drain. A sickening sense of kinship washed over me. Here was a woman experiencing the same gut-wrenching betrayal I had endured. "My name's Marianne," I said softly, "and I know exactly how you feel." Over coffee, I recounted my own nightmarish tale with Vance and Fleur. The woman, Jessa, listened intently, nodding in understanding. "Scumbags, the both of them," she seethed when I finished. "We can't let them get away with this." Something ignited inside me at her words. A fire I thought Vance had extinguished. "You're right," I said firmly. "They made their beds, and now it's time to lie in them." Jessa's eyes narrowed determinedly. "What did you have in mind?" In that moment, a bond was forged. Two wronged women, united in our quest for justice. We began plotting, strategizing every angle to take down our unfaithful spouses. With Jessa's help, my surveillance efforts doubled. We tracked Vance and her husband Mitch's every illicit move, documenting their lies with cold efficiency. We'd pool our resources, sharing information and covering each other's blind spots. One fateful evening, we uncovered the smoking gun, proof that Vance had been diverting money from our joint accounts to fund his lavish lifestyle with Fleur. My blood boiled at the revelation. He wasn't just betraying our vows, but robbing from our children's future. As Jessa and I pored over the damning financial records, a wicked smile crossed her lips. "This is it," she muttered, "the final nail in their coffins." I squeezed her hand, matching her vicious grin. "Let's bury them." With the financial paper trail in hand, Jessa and I knew we had Vance and Mitch dead to rights. But simply taking them to court wasn't enough. We wanted them to burn for their betrayal. We spent hours strategizing, plotting our next move with surgical precision. Finally, Jessa's eyes lit up with a sinister glint. "I've got it," she announced. "The Westbrook Charity Gala next weekend." I frowned in confusion. "What about it?" Jessa grinned wickedly. "It's the biggest social event of the season. Everyone who's anyone will be there, including our lying spouses and their mistresses." Realization dawned on me, and I matched her devilish smile. The perfect stage to expose them. "Exactly," Jessa purred. "We'll make a grand entrance looking like $1,000,000. Then we drop the bomb on them. The evidence, the money trail, all of it." My heart raced at the thought of publicly humiliating Vance, of shattering his pristine reputation into 1,000,000 pieces. "They'll have nowhere to hide," I murmured. "Their worlds will come crashing down around them." Jessa clapped me on the back. "Damn straight, we're going scorched earth on these bastards." In the days leading up to the gala, we prepared meticulously. I splurged on a slinky crimson gown that hugged every curve, coupled with towering stilettos that doubled as weapons of mass destruction. Jessa's own jaw-dropping ensemble left no curves to the imagination. We pored over the guest list, confirming the attendance of our targets, as well as high-profile social figures and media outlets. This spectacle was going prime time. The night of the gala, Jessa and I arrived fashionably late. All eyes locked on us as we made our grand entrance. I spotted Vance almost immediately, looking dashing in his tuxedo with Floor draped on his arm like a cheap accessory. The sight made my blood boil. We worked the room methodically, greeting old friends and making polite small talk, all while discreetly spreading the word to be prepared for fireworks later in the evening. Finally, as the keynote speaker took the stage, Jessa gave me a subtle nod. Showtime. I tapped my champagne glass with a spoon, the crisp pinging sound slicing through the hushed ballroom. All eyes turned towards me as I cleared my throat. "Excuse me, everyone," I announced in my most saccharine voice. "I'm afraid we have a situation that demands immediate attention." Jessa slinked up beside me, reveling in the hushed murmurs rippling through the crowd. She produced a glossy manila folder, letting the stack of papers and photographs spill carelessly onto the stage. "My friend Marianne and I," she called out loudly, "have been respectful wives and mothers for decades, but it seems our dear husbands have a hard time respecting their vows." I shot Vance a pointed glare as gasps echoed across the ballroom. He paled, clutching Floor's arm in a stranglehold. "For months we've compiled evidence of their infidelity," I declared, my voice dripping with venom. "Their lies, their illicit trysts in seedy motels, their stolen money funding their sordid affairs." Whispers and muted shrieks bounced off the walls as the high society crowd took in the lurid photographs and financial statements. A hot-faced Vance shrank in his seat. "Well, ladies and gentlemen," Jessa sneered into the microphone, "I do hope you're prepared to shun these shameless degenerates accordingly, because this is just the beginning." With a wicked grin, she turned back to me as the room erupted into chaos. "Shall we, darling?" The aftermath of our exposure at the gala was nothing short of explosive. Cameras flashed from every angle as reporters swarmed us, shouting rapid-fire questions about the scandal unfolding before their eyes. "Mrs. Lawrence, can you confirm the allegations against your husband?" "Miss Peters, how long has this affair been going on?" I batted them away with a dismissive wave. "I'll be making an official statement shortly. For now, I have a more pressing matter to attend to." Pushing through the frenzied crowd, I locked eyes with Vance. His face was twisted with panic and rage as he attempted to shield Floor from the onslaught. "You," he sputtered, struggling to find words. "How could you do this to me? To us?" A harsh laugh escaped my lips. "Are you serious right now, after everything you've put me through?" Floor clung to his arm, pale and trembling. For once, the smug little tramp looked appropriately rattled. "I never wanted to hurt you," Vance pleaded, his voice cracking. "But Floor, we're in love." My jaw clenched at his pathetic excuse. "Save it. I have proof you've been funneling our money to this side piece for months." I gestured towards the stacks of documents still scattered across the stage. "Not just cheating on me, but stealing from our own children's future." Vance's eyes widened in panic as the weight of the evidence became clear. Around us, the ballroom had descended into chaos, shrill shrieks and furious shouts echoing from every corner. "I'll lose everything," he whispered, horror dawning across his features. "My job, my reputation." A cruel smile tugged at my lips. "Good, that's exactly what I was going for." Jessa appeared at my side, reveling in Vance's rapidly crumbling world. "You scumbags didn't just betray us," she sneered. "You betrayed the entire community with your lies and debauchery." "Think about how this is going to play out," I taunted, taking a step closer to Vance. "Society wives whispering about the married men who couldn't keep it in their pants, corporate sponsors dropping you like a bad habit once the press gets hold of those money trails." Panic flickered across Floor's face as the realization set in, her future as a disgraced, ostracized mistress. Vance simply gaped at me, stunned into silence by the devastation I had wrought. Turning on my heel, I looped my arm through Jessa's as we strode away from the chaos, our heads held high. "I'm not done with him yet," I murmured under my breath. "Not by a long shot." Jessa squeezed my hand reassuringly. Of course not, honey. We've still got the courts for the final knockout blow. A wicked smile crossed my lips as I reveled in my newfound power. For far too long I had been reduced to a doormat by Vance and his ego, but not anymore. The tables had turned, and they were about to learn a brutal lesson about the fury of a woman scorned. The weeks following the gala were a media frenzy. Our explosive exposure of Vance and Mitch's affairs dominated the headlines and social media chatter. I watched with sick satisfaction as their reputations crumbled beneath the weight of public outcry. Corporate sponsors dropped Vance's firm like a ton of bricks, disgusted by his embezzlement and debauchery. Fleur found herself blacklisted by every social circle, her scarlet letter branding her as a homewrecker. Even Mitch's once thriving business took a nosedive as clients jumped ship. As for me, I reveled in my new status as a wronged woman reclaiming her power, an inspiration to scorned wives everywhere, according to the glossy magazine profiles. My daring takedown sparked a movement of empowered women refusing to be doormats any longer. Of course, none of it would matter if I didn't secure the ultimate victory in court. The day of the divorce proceedings, I strode into the courthouse like a conquering warrior, Jessa and my children at my side. Vance slouched in his seat, his expensive suit doing little to conceal the dark circles beneath his eyes. Looking a little worse for wear there, honey, I taunted with a sickly sweet smile. He shot me a venomous glare but remained silent. Fleur wasn't even present, another small victory. As the proceedings commenced, Amanda wasted no time in ruthlessly dismantling Vance's case brick by brick. The evidence of his infidelity and embezzlement mounted with each exhibit, each witness called to the stand. I watched him squirm, sweat beading on his brow as his world crumbled entirely. Every dirty secret, every sordid lie laid bare before the court, and broadcast for the world to see through the ravenous media present. When it finally came time for him to take the stand, Vance was a mere shell of the arrogant blowhard I had once loved. His gaze flitted around the courtroom desperately before settling on me with a pleading look. "Marianne," he began, voice cracking, "I'm so sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you or the kids like this. I was selfish and stupid, and I'll regret this for the rest of my life." I stared back impassively, unmoved by his pathetic attempt at an apology. "Your Honor," Amanda spoke up coolly, "I believe we've established a clear pattern of deceit, embezzlement, and wanton disregard for his marital vows on behalf of Mr. Lawrence." The judge, a stern-faced, no-nonsense woman, nodded curtly. "Indeed, this court has more than enough evidence to grant Mrs. Lawrence's demands for an extremely favorable settlement." A soft gasp escaped Vance's lips as the reality crashed over him. Years of his affair, his underhanded money moves, all for nothing in the face of my righteous vengeance. Evelyn and Carter squeezed my hands tightly, beaming with pride. Jessa offered me a subtle wink and a nod of respect. As the judge's gavel slammed down, I felt an immense weight lifted from my shoulders. The shackles of Vance's betrayal, the years of playing the fool, all of it evaporated in that moment. I was free. And he had lost everything. The crisp autumn air held a sense of renewal as I stepped through the doorway of my new home, a cozy two-story bungalow in a quieter neighborhood, leaving behind the cavernous empty house that once represented my marriage's emptiness. As I trailed my fingers along the warm wooden banister, I felt a weight finally lifting from my shoulders. The past year's turmoil had taken its toll, but I refused to let Vance's betrayal define me any longer. "This is a fresh start, Mom," Evelyn said softly, placing a reassuring hand on my arm. "A chance to live life on your own terms again." I smiled at my daughter, struck by her steadfast support through the entire ordeal. Carter emerged from the kitchen, arms laden with boxes. "Where do you want these?" he grunted, ever the helping hand. With a contented sigh, I gestured towards the sitting room. "Just set them by the fireplace for now. We've got all the time in the world to unpack and settle in." Carter grinned cheekily. "Don't have to tell me twice. I'm claiming the biggest bedroom." "Fair is fair." Evelyn playfully swatted at him as they bickered upstairs, their laughter filling the empty halls with life once more. Left alone, I wandered through the spacious living area, picturing how I would decorate and make this place truly my own sanctuary. No more muted tones and stuffy decor chosen to impress pretentious country club cronies. This home would reflect the woman I had become, vibrant, self-assured, unchained. The shrill ring of my phone shattered the peaceful moment. I frowned at the caller ID, Vance's number, yet again. "I told you not to contact me," I said curtly after reluctantly answering. "Marianne." His voice was thick with desperation. "Please, just hear me out one last time. What we had, it wasn't all bad, was it?" I squeezed my eyes shut, resisting the urge to hurl the phone across the room. How typical of him to try crawling back with meaningless platitudes now that he had lost everything. "Save your breath, Vance," I snapped. "You made your choices, and I've made mine. This is my life now, one free of your lies and betrayal." There was a heavy pause before he finally spoke again, reined in defeat. I'm so sorry, Marianne, for everything." His voice cracked with emotion. "I hope you find happiness." The line went dead as I slowly lowered the phone, letting the weight of his apology hang in the air. But this time, it didn't sting. I felt nothing but cold indifference towards the man who had shattered my world. Rejoining my children in the sitting room, I dug through a box of framed photos until I found the one I wanted, a candid snapshot from years ago, all four of us laughing and embracing on the beach. Vance wasn't a part of this memory, not anymore. I carefully placed the frame on the mantel, a poignant reminder of what truly mattered, the family bond Vance could never break, no matter how hard he tried. "You know," I said softly, wrapping my arms around Evelyn and Carter, "I think this new chapter is going to be the best one yet." My smile widened as I drank in the love and support radiating from their faces. For the first time in forever, the future seemed wide open, ripe with possibilities for joy, adventure, even romance. No more walking on eggshells, no more wilting beneath the shadow of someone else's selfish desires. This life was solely mine to cultivate and nourish, blossoming with the unstoppable spirit of a woman reclaiming her power. Autumn had never looked so beautifully inviting.
Hey, if you'd like, how about having dinner with my daughter sometime? What? What? I was simply a regular employee when I was invited to a dinner meeting with Mr. Sawyer, a business partner, to go on a date with his lovely daughter. A meal with a woman so beautiful, and she's the daughter of a head of the company. Why would a mere high school graduate like me be given this opportunity? A date to match. When the scheduled date day finally came, I felt as though I had been in a dream. While I waited, the daughter of the firm president came up to me, flushed, and asked, "Remember me? For so long, I've wanted to see you." I wonder if it's a quirk of fate. Between us, there was a secret. Ryan is my name. My parents and 5 siblings were not wealthy when I was growing up. My youngest sister is 10 years younger than me, making me the oldest of 5 children. In the country, our family of 7 resided in a modest rental home. We ate a lot of rice or noodles every day, but it was an uncommon luxury to have an abundance of meat or veggies. Nevertheless, we were all equally loved and raised by our parents. They made sure we could at least complete high school in spite of our financial difficulties. I had originally intended to begin working immediately after middle school, despite the fact that money was short. My father, however, persuaded me differently. I struggled to get employment after barely completing middle school. It will be considerably more difficult in your generation. I registered in a nearby public high school as a result of my father's advice. Since part-time employment was not strictly prohibited by the school, I began working while I was a student and contributing a portion of my earnings to cover living expenses. I would give my mother an envelope containing my money each month, and she would always accept it with a mixture of remorse and appreciation. Her expression is something I will always remember. I'd also kept some money for myself, although I seldom ever used it because I worked most of the time I had off. I loved taking my younger siblings out, especially my youngest sister, on my infrequent days off. She had a strong personality. Having 4 bigger brothers as a child taught her how to fight back. At this point, none of us could argue with her. She got into so many fights with the boys in her class in elementary school that the school called us in a lot. As the oldest, I had to go pick her up because both of our parents had jobs. She never showed any signs of regret when I got there. Rather, she would smile and say, "Hey there." I just let out a sigh. I ought to have given her more reprimands, but I never did. Because there was always a girl, head down, on the edge of tears, standing next to my smiling sister. This girl was shy and quiet, in contrast to my sister. My justice-driven sister would battle to protect her from the lads who bullied her in class. It became a habit to take them both home together. Even though she had a fiery temper, my sister would always ask me to ride on her back during our walks. "You're so big, Ryan," she'd say, laughing happily on my back. By the time I entered high school, I had already grown over 6 feet tall. Sometimes, just to tease my sister, I would offer to carry her friend instead. She would get jealous, and it was adorable. After I turned 17, my life changed drastically. My father passed away. My mother had no time to grieve. She immediately took on more work to support us. I, too, increased my part-time hours and contributed even more to the household. Ryan, I'm so sorry. On the day of my high school graduation, my mother, exhausted, wept as she apologized to me. Right after graduating, I joined a company that, while offering different starting salaries for high school and college graduates, provided fair promotions based on performance. Thanks to that, now that I'm in my 30s, my salary is far from low. I've continued sending money back home so my younger siblings could have the opportunity to pursue what they wanted. But next year, my youngest sister will graduate from college, and my mother has told me I no longer need to send money. As a project leader, I've been handling more responsibilities, and I feel like I've built a stable life in my own way. Sure, I struggled financially, but I'm grateful to my father for insisting I finish high school and to my mother for working relentlessly until I graduated. All right, Ryan will be the leader for the next project, and Nathan will assist him. The upcoming project was a major deal. I was chosen as the leader in our first meeting. Excitement and nervousness swelled inside me. Ryan. As I stepped out of the meeting room, a voice called me from behind. It was Nathan, my newly assigned assistant. "How did you pitch it to the department head, Tom?" We were the same age, but Nathan had entered the company as a college graduate and was placed directly into this department, an elite track in our company. I guess people who have been with the company longer tend to get favoritism from Tom and the others. Huh. What do you think, Ryan? Nathan had never liked the fact that I had worked my way up from the field as a high school graduate. His words and attitude always had a hint of bitterness, and right now was no different. I just pitched my proposal like everyone else, and this time I happened to be chosen. I feel reassured having you as my assistant, looking forward to working together. What he said wasn't entirely wrong. Tom had been looking out for me since my days on the ground. He knew about my family situation, and I was aware that he sympathized with me. That's exactly why I didn't want to stir things up. I'll coordinate the schedule with the client. Nathan's left eyebrow twitched slightly, perhaps unimpressed by my response. But he quickly returned to his usual cold demeanor and started discussing work. We'll arrange a dinner meeting with the client soon. I'll check their availability. That'd be a big help. As I nodded, Nathan gave me a slow once-over before adding, "Mr. Sawyer, the president of the other company, will also be attending the dinner. So please pay attention to your attire. I doubt you'd show up in work clothes, though." With a smirk, Nathan walked away. This was going to be a rough ride. Watching him leave, I glanced down at my own outfit and let out a sigh. Is that expensive-looking suit custom-made? And those polished leather shoes? Nathan is wearing a branded watch. Even I recognize it. Meanwhile, I stood there in my work uniform, worn-out shoes, and the cheap waterproof watch I had used since my fieldwork days. On the night of the dinner meeting, the introductions and business discussions went smoothly. As the drinks flowed, the conversation gradually shifted to more casual topics. Mr. Sawyer, the client company's president, was a very approachable man. He had a natural talent for conversation, making people feel at ease while skillfully drawing out information. He was observant. "You've got a nice watch there." He must have noticed it when Nathan handed him a fresh hand towel. Mr. Sawyer casually brought up the topic of Nathan's watch. "Thank you. I always pay attention to what I wear in a professional setting. Though, some people who work their way up from the field don't seem to get that." Nathan's latter remark was clearly aimed at me. I could feel his smirk as he glanced in my direction. "What about you, Ryan? Not really into watches?" Mr. Sawyer turned to me with friendly curiosity. I had, of course, dressed in a suit tonight. I had put in an effort, but compared to Nathan's fine fabric suit, mine was obviously of a lower grade. I hadn't worn a watch. I didn't own one that would be appropriate for an occasion like this. Honestly, I'm not very knowledgeable about these things. Ryan here has quite the story. Unlike most of us, he joined straight out of high school and worked his way up. Nathan cut in before I could finish, his words sounding like praise but dripping with condescension. Whether or not Mr. Sawyer picked up on Nathan's subtle jab, he turned to me with genuine interest. "Straight out of high school, huh? That's impressive. It must have been quite the journey to get here." He took a sip of his sake, and I leaned forward to pour him another as I replied, "I didn't go to college simply because my family couldn't afford it. I don't think I got to where I am today through any extraordinary hardship. I've just been fortunate to meet the right people in the company and on the field." "Financial reasons, huh? So what kind of struggles do you consider ordinary?" Mr. Sawyer set down his cup, picked up the sake bottle, and gestured with his eyes for me to hold my cup. Feeling a bit humbled, I held it with both hands as he poured me a drink, which I quickly finished before continuing the conversation. For some reason, Mr. Sawyer seemed genuinely interested in my upbringing. I never considered my hardships something to brag about, nor did I particularly enjoy talking about them. But before I knew it, I had shared quite a bit. How I grew up in a poor rural home with many siblings and the challenges that came with it. At some point, Mr. Sawyer took out his phone, tapped on it for a moment, and then showed me a photo. It was a family picture, him, his wife, his son, and his daughter. His son resembled him, a sharp-looking young man with an intelligent gaze. His daughter, on the other hand, didn't particularly look like him, but had a poised and graceful presence. She was undeniably beautiful. "My son already works at my company, but my daughter will be graduating next year. She's probably around the same age as your sister. Would you like to have dinner with her sometime?" "Huh? Dinner with such a beautiful woman. And she's the president's daughter." Caught completely off guard, I struggled to find words. Before I could respond, Nathan cut in. "Would this be just the two of them? If you'd like, I can arrange the dinner and join as well." "No, I want Ryan to meet my daughter." Listening to his story, I thought it might be good for her to hear from someone who's already working. I'm not forcing anything. This isn't a formal matchmaking event, just a simple dinner. No need to feel pressured. With that, I had no real reason to refuse, so I accepted Mr. Sawyer's offer. On the taxi ride home that night, Nathan's attitude toward me seemed even sharper than usual. "Ryan, it must have been really tough growing up poor and not being able to go to college. Sounds like one of those large families they show on TV. Upper management sure loves a good underdog story. Huh. Well, I wouldn't really know." Perhaps emboldened by the alcohol, he was being much more direct than usual. "Oh, and about that dinner with Mr. Sawyer's daughter, don't get your hopes up for some Cinderella story. People from prestigious families marry within their ranks. Given your background, you wouldn't even be considered." He was really laying into me. But I wasn't foolish enough to take the bait. If my past was entertaining for some, then so be it. I silently watched the cityscape pass by outside the taxi window until we arrived at my stop. A few days later, Mr. Sawyer reached out again, and sure enough, the dinner with his daughter was arranged. The designated restaurant was a French place inside a luxury hotel, an establishment that was obviously high-end at first glance. I felt out of place just stepping inside. Dinner in a place like this is nerve-wracking. After being shown to my seat by the waiter, I unlocked my phone and opened the home screen. 12:20. The reservation was for 12:30, so arriving 10 minutes early shouldn't be a problem. I silenced my phone, tucked it into my jacket, and let out a slow breath. The elegant atmosphere made me restless. I found myself scanning the room nervously before shifting my gaze to the window to steady myself. The view from this high-floor restaurant was a sprawling city skyline. The night view must be stunning. As I was lost in thought, a voice called out from behind me. "Ryan, sorry to keep you waiting." Snapped out of my daze, I quickly stood and turned toward the voice. It was Mr. Sawyer, and standing just behind him was a petite young woman. "This is my daughter, Maline. Maline, this is Ryan." The woman introduced as Maline was just as beautiful as in the photo. No, even more so in person. "I'm Maline." As our eyes met, her expression shifted to one of surprise and slight confusion. It wasn't until I caught myself staring that I realized I hadn't even greeted her yet. "Ah, my name is Ryan. Thank you for having me today." As the meal neared its end and the dessert was served, Mr. Sawyer checked his watch and said, "I'm sorry, but I'll be leaving now. You two can take your time and enjoy the rest of the evening. There's still time left for the table, so feel free to order more wine and relax. Don't worry about the bill. It's taken care of." Saying that, he stood up and left. I was bewildered to find myself in a situation that felt like, I'll leave the two young ones to talk, as if this were a matchmaking meeting. Throughout the entire meal, most of the conversation had been between Mr. Sawyer and me. Maline had barely spoken, only offering the occasional polite nod or brief response. As I hesitated, wondering how to start a conversation, Maline suddenly let out a deep sigh. "You? Ryan, was it? What exactly did my father tell you to get you here? Did he say this was some kind of matchmaking setup?" Her tone, casual and somewhat exasperated, was completely different from the reserved demeanor she had maintained up until now. I was caught completely off guard. "No, it's not like it was a matchmaking meeting or anything. He just wanted me to listen to your job search situation." As I answered hesitantly, her expression twisted with skepticism. "Job search advice? From you, Ryan?" Her tone carried an unspoken message. Why would anyone consult a high school graduate about that? She must have overheard my conversation with Mr. Sawyer during dinner, learning about my impoverished upbringing, and how I started working at this company straight out of high school. "My youngest sister is the same age as you, so maybe that's why he thought I could offer some insight." When I mentioned my sister, Maline's expression seemed to soften a little. Well, whatever. Since we're here, should we order a digestive?" Unfamiliar with the term, I mentally put up a question mark. It must have shown on my face. "You don't seem used to places like this," she sighed. "It's an after-dinner wine, Ryan. From what I've heard, this kind of restaurant isn't really your thing, is it? You shouldn't push yourself." Was she trying to say I had no business being in a place like this? That was a bold statement. Besides, this restaurant wasn't my choice. It was Mr. Sawyer's. I had no say in the matter. That's true. I must admit, I come from a humble background, so I'm not used to places like this. I suppose I should choose restaurants more suited to my status in the future. Being told that by someone 10 years younger, just like my sister, irritated me at least a little. But after all, she was the daughter of an important client. Maintaining a businesslike attitude, I responded to her remark. But my response must not have sat well with Maline. A clear look of distaste crossed her otherwise beautiful face. "I've been thinking about this since you were talking to my father. But do you make a point of selling your poverty? Or do you think my father and I enjoy hearing about it?" Her words were completely unexpected, and I was at a loss for words, unable to process their meaning right away. Being poor is fine, but making it a self-deprecating joke to entertain others, that's just pathetic. It felt like I'd been struck with a blunt weapon. What does she know about my struggles? After that, I was too busy suppressing my rising anger to continue any meaningful conversation. We left the restaurant without ordering a digestive. "Thank you for your time today. I'm sorry I couldn't be of any help, and if anything, ended up making you uncomfortable instead." As we waited for a taxi, I spoke those words. Maylene looked up at me as if she had something to say, but instead, she reached for the taxi door. I gestured for her to get in. Just before the door closed, I thought I heard her whisper, "I'm sorry," in a barely audible voice. But I pretended not to notice. I took a step back and bowed with a polite, artificial smile. Back home, I buried my head in my hands. That last farewell was obviously too sharp. What the hell am I going to do? She's the daughter of an important business partner. But what's with her attitude? Acting all high and mighty, saying being poor is fine. I was still fuming. But more than that, her words stuck with me. Coming from someone a whole decade younger, they were impossible to ignore. What was that tiny apology for? No. More importantly, what about work? If today's dinner ended up jeopardizing the deal, I'd be in deep trouble. I poured a cheap bottle of wine I had impulsively bought on the way home into a dollar store glass and gulped it down. Honestly, I'd rather have barley tea after a meal. The unfamiliar wine left a bitter aftertaste in my throat, just like my thoughts. Monday morning, shortly after the workday started, I received a call from Mr. Sawyer. My hands were clammy as I gripped the receiver. There was no way I could refuse his invitation to dinner, so I readily accepted. As a result, I spent the entire day in a gloomy mood. Seeing me like that, Nathan smirked and said, "Did you mess up at the dinner? If you're stepping down from the project, let me know early so I can take over." That only made me feel worse. That night, at dinner with Mr. Sawyer, I barely sat down before bowing my head. "I fear I may have offended your daughter with my shortcomings. I sincerely apologize." To my surprise, Mr. Sawyer looked taken aback. "I haven't heard anything from my daughter about that evening yet. Can you tell me what happened?" Nervously, I lifted my head and recounted the events of that night. Mr. Sawyer closed his eyes and thought for a moment before, to my shock, bowing his head to me. "Ryan, I'm sorry. My daughter said something out of line." Flustered, I panicked. "No, Mr. Sawyer, please raise your head." But he kept his head lowered as he continued. "It's not so much my daughter. It was my fault for prying too much into your background. I didn't mean to pity or mock your struggles, but I may have made you feel like I was pushing you to talk about them. I sincerely apologize." His unexpected apology left me scrambling for words. Before I could respond, he lifted his head and spoke again. "Would you mind if I shared a little about my own family? Actually, Maylene is my wife's daughter from her previous marriage. My first wife passed away shortly after giving birth to my son. I remarried Malene's mother when Maylene was still in elementary school. Before our marriage, Maylene and her mother didn't have a wealthy life. After I married her mother, Malene's life changed drastically, and she no longer lacked anything materially. However, our relationship as father and daughter remains somewhat fragile." Mr. Sawyer sighed. "I think of her as my own daughter, but ever since the topic of job hunting came up, she's been distancing herself from me even more. She rarely talks of her older brother either, and lately, even her mother has noticed that she seems withdrawn. I was hoping she would find someone she could confide in, and that's when I met you. You're a straightforward and kind person, Ryan. Could you be someone she can talk to? I think a strong yet fragile girl like her needs an older brother figure she can rely on." As he lowered his head again, I couldn't help but think, why me? The thought wouldn't leave my mind. Fathers are so powerless when it comes to their daughters, he said with a weak smile. Seeing Mr. Sawyer give a hesitant smile, I said, Understood. I'm not sure how much help I can be, but I'll do my best to support them. There was no other way to respond. After that, Mr. Sawyer arranged another dinner for me and his daughter. I was worried that Malene might refuse to meet me even if I was okay with it, but surprisingly, she accepted without hesitation. This time, I got to choose the restaurant, and we decided to meet under the clock tower near the station. When I arrived right on time, she was already there. Despite the bustling crowd at this popular meeting spot, she stood out immediately. Since I had told her in advance that we were going to a casual Italian restaurant, her outfit was noticeably more relaxed compared to last time. She really is beautiful. Even in a casual outfit, she had an air of elegance that captivated me. As she checked the time and glanced around, her gaze met mine for a brief moment. Her face seemed to light up, only to quickly turn into a displeased expression. I panicked and hurried over to her. Sorry to keep you waiting. You invite me and still make me wait. Unbelievable. I had arrived exactly on time, so I wished she would cut me some slack. But if she felt like she had been waiting, I had no choice but to apologize. I'm really sorry. Thank you for coming today. She looked me up and down and frowned. Could you at least put a little more effort into your outfit? It seemed my choice of clothes wasn't to her liking. Last time, I had worn a suit, but today I had dressed casually. I wasn't exactly into fashion, so I probably didn't look particularly stylish. Even someone as clueless about trends as me could tell that Malene's outfit was fashionable. She was probably wearing some high-end brand I had never heard of. I guess it must be embarrassing to walk around with a shabby old guy like me. Sorry about that, I muttered. At my apology, her eyes widened in surprise before she sharply retorted, No, that's not what I meant. Since it's a date, I just wanted you to dress up a little more. I don't think you're poor or an old man. Her words came out in a rush, and I found myself instinctively apologizing again. Sorry about that. Just hurry up and take me to the restaurant. Also, you're older than me, so stop talking so formally and just speak normally. She turned her face away, but I couldn't help but notice that her ears were slightly red. That realization made my own face feel a little hot. Meanwhile, the word date kept echoing in my mind. All right then, I'll just talk normally, but you should do the same. As I peered at her face, she glanced up at me and gave a small nod, looking just a little pleased. Over dinner, we had a casual conversation. As we started to feel more at ease, I asked, By the way, have you decided on a job yet, Malene? I've received offers from a few places, but I still have final interviews coming up. So nothing is set in stone yet. Since her major aligned with her father's company, I couldn't help but wonder. You could just work for Mr. Sawyer's company, right? Had you considered that? The moment I asked, the atmosphere around her changed sharply. I realized too late that I had hit a sore spot. I don't want to talk about this today, she said, shutting down the conversation. To lighten the mood, I suggested, Do you have time after this? If there's somewhere you want to go, let's go together. Then come shopping with me, she said. I agreed without hesitation. I'm exhausted. Saying yes to shopping had been easy, but I had no idea it would be this tiring. The first place she dragged me to was a clothing store. Apparently, she refused to be seen with me in my current outfit. Surprisingly, it was a brand I actually recognized, a relatively affordable one. I had expected to just accompany her, but instead, I became her dress-up doll, trying on outfit after outfit. By the 5th round of changing, she finally seemed satisfied. She then asked the store clerk to remove the tags and casually said, We're leaving like this, before paying for everything herself. I'll pay for it. Flustered, I reached for my wallet, but Malene dismissed me with a casual wave. "You're carrying my bags all day, so consider that your payment," she said, shoving the shopping bag filled with clothes, when had she even bought them, into my arms before striding out of the store. From there, I was dragged from store to store, playing the role of her personal servant, my arms weighed down with branded shopping bags. By the time the sky had turned orange, our shopping spree finally ended with her purchase of a pastel green handbag, apparently this year's trendy color for spring. Once I got her into a taxi, I was finally free. Just before she left, I forced the money for my clothes into her hands. There was no way I was going to let a student pay for my outfit. She had probably chosen affordable brands on purpose, knowing I wouldn't accept anything too expensive. Still, how many stores does she need to drag someone through? I thought, exhausted. At least we got a little closer, I guess. For a man in his 30s, the day had been exhausting, but I could call it a small step forward. From the way she reacted when I mentioned her father during dinner, I had a feeling that Malene was struggling with their relationship. If that's the case, they need to talk things out as a family. Clearly, we were still far from reaching that goal. I sighed as I looked up at the sky, where the orange hues were now fading into pale purple. After that, both Malene and I became busy, and we didn't have another chance to meet. However, we had exchanged contact information during our last outing and texted a few times each week. It was nothing special, just short messages about what had happened in our week, but there was something oddly ticklish about it. Between my company's project with Mr. Sawyer and other ongoing work, I was overwhelmed with deadlines and hadn't found the right moment to ask her out again. Nearly a month had passed since our last meeting when, on an overcast day, I was out for a business meeting. The damp warmth of late spring hung in the air, the humidity making everything feel sticky and unpleasant. Why do I have to be running around so much on a day like this? I thought irritably. But my next client was a company introduced by Mr. Sawyer. If we landed the deal, it would be a major contract, one that would benefit both my company and me personally. Having already finished a meeting with one company earlier in the day, I checked my watch while heading to the station. The current time was 12:50. Originally, my next meeting had been scheduled for 1:00 p.m., but I had arranged to push it back to 2:00 p.m., so I had some time to spare. Since I hadn't eaten yet, I glanced around, considering grabbing a quick bite while reviewing my notes. Noticing an unusually large number of young girls standing around, I couldn't help but furrow my brow, thinking that this area had become less safe. As I scanned the scene, I spotted a commotion between a man and a woman a short distance away. Both were holding umbrellas, obscuring their faces. "I told you, I'm not interested. Let go of me." I knew that voice. The voice made me freeze. Then my eyes caught sight of the woman's handbag, pastel green. Before I even had time to think, my legs were already moving. "I'm telling you, name your price. 2, 3. I barely had time to register the sleazy tone of the man's voice before my hand clamped down on his shoulder. "Do you need something from her?" The man flinched, his voice turning defensive. "Hey, who are you?" When he turned and looked up to meet my gaze, his posture stiffened immediately. Moments like these made me appreciate my naturally towering height. "Do you need something from my sister?" Let go of her hand. Looking down at the man with an intimidating glare, I saw him scoff. "So it really isn't true? Huh." Then he roughly let go of the woman's arm, almost throwing it aside. The force of it made her stumble backward, and she let out a short ow. Reacting instinctively, I grabbed her shoulder and pulled her toward me. "Are you okay, Malene?" I found myself holding her close almost instinctively. Realizing what I was doing, I quickly stepped back, bent down to pick up her fallen umbrella, and handed it back to her. I'm fine." She clutched the handle of her pastel green handbag tightly, her fingers trembling slightly. "Why are you here?" My voice came out lower than I intended, but seeing her in a place like this, shaken and vulnerable, sent a wave of anger through me. I couldn't help but press her for an answer. Do you even know what kind of place this is? Does Mr. Sawyer know you're here? This area had become notorious in recent years as a spot where young women were scouted and preyed upon by men. It had been a growing concern. The moment I mentioned her father, Malene snapped her head up and glared at me. Why are you bringing him up? What does it matter to him where I go or what I do? Oh, are you worried that I'll ruin his company's reputation? Don't worry, he doesn't even want me involved in that company. He has his perfect son for that, doesn't he? If I cause any trouble, he'll probably just cut me off since I'm not his real daughter anyway. Her words came out in a furious rush, her emotions clearly overwhelming her. If that happens, maybe I'll just make money this way after all. She spat out her words with a self-deprecating tone. I raised my voice at her. Enough already. Do you even realize how much Mr. Sawyer worries about you? Not his real daughter. He put you through university, gave you a comfortable life. Can't you see that's love? Throwing money at someone isn't love. I never asked for any of it. Stop acting like a child. Parents spend money to give their kids opportunities because they love them, so they can become anything to anything. Mr. Sawyer told me himself he thinks of you as his real daughter, but he's scared. Scared that if he tries to get closer, you'll reject him. And you're the same, aren't you? Did he really say he doesn't want you involved in the company, or are you just assuming? You need to talk to him properly. Families don't understand each other unless they communicate. As I firmly gripped Malene's shoulder and finished speaking, her large, startled eyes gradually lowered. After a brief silence, she began to speak in a small voice. I was just heading to the station. I don't usually walk through this area, but since it was raining, I wanted to take a shortcut. Then that guy called out to me. I didn't know this place was like that. Hearing that, I couldn't help but click my tongue in frustration. Malene flinched, her shoulders trembling slightly. Not at you, please. You're not to blame, I own it. I made snap judgments without really listening to you. I apologize. I was angry with myself as much as I had been at that guy before. I really apologize. You were on your way to the station, correct? Together. Let's go. I heard Malene utter a little ouch behind me as I began to move. She appeared to have injured her left foot during the push. Pushed out, I became even more enraged with that man. Malene's head hung down like a crying kid as she gripped the hem of my jacket. Something in my chest constricted when I saw her like that. Malene, hold my umbrella. As I gave it to her, she gave me a perplexed expression. I then squatted down with my back to her and shifted my backpack to the front. Get on. Malene was hesitant, and I could tell as I knelt down to offer her a ride. Unsure, she muttered, but that's not how you'll get to the station. Let me take you to the taxi rank. Hold the umbrella, please. Unless you prefer to be carried like a bag of rice over my shoulder. That's when she reluctantly, at last, got on my back. Thanks. I couldn't help but smile as I heard a faint thanks whispered close to my ear. After we arrived at the taxi stand, I checked her foot and gently placed her on a bench. Hey, I believe the phone in your pocket kept vibrating. Did you get a call? Malene gestured toward my wallet. My blood ran cold as I hastily took out my phone. 7 calls from my next meeting were missed. 1:20 p.m. was the time displayed. I still had more than half an hour until the appointed time. I could go there from here in a reasonable amount of time. It must have happened. I was thinking that when my phone rang once more. I responded right away. I'm Ryan. I'm sorry I missed your calls. I was just going to give you a call back. An irate voice interrupted me before I could say anything more. We are past the time we were supposed to be here. What's happening? My fingers started to go cold, not from the rain, but rather from the knowledge that was beginning to set in. I sincerely apologize. Nearly exhausted from sprinting, I reached the client's office at 1:40. I bowed deeply without even collecting my breath. The customer stated, since this meeting was arranged through Mr. Sawyer's introduction, we made time for it, with a mixture of disbelief and annoyance. I lowered my head more. Fortunately, Nathan managed the conversation, so it wasn't a total failure. However, you were meant to be the primary contact at first, right? We might ask for a different representative from your organization if we proceed with the contract. Please remember that. I looked up into Nathan's eyes. When the meeting time was changed, Nathan was in charge of the correspondence. The shift to 2 p.m. was made explicit in the project leader and assistant's shared scheduling discussion. Still, I could tell everything from the expression in Nathan's eyes. I was played. I clenched my fists and suppressed my annoyance. I called Nathan into the meeting room as soon as we got back to the office. I require an explanation. Do you mean that there was never a timetable change? Rescheduled to 2 p.m. was no longer there when I looked at the shared itinerary on my way back. Instead, it read 1 p.m. meeting. In essence, only the individuals involved were able to manage this schedule. Only Nathan and I were aware of any modifications made to this chat. The business will lose a lot of money if this agreement doesn't work out. Did you really come this far to defeat me? Although I had long suspected Nathan considered me a rival, I never thought he would go to such lengths. I became furious. Hey, without you, everything ran smoothly, so what's the issue? To be honest, I find it infuriating that you utilize your difficult upbringing and struggles as a narrative to close sales. Mr. Sawyer presented you to this client, correct? In what specific way did you warm up to him? Sincerely, I respect the drive for desperate survival, but everything you've worked so hard to build with your poverty card will be lost after this fiasco. In the best scenario, you are demoted. The worst situation, back to the field, huh? His contemptuous stare and sneering comments left me speechless. Could someone really detest someone else this much? I stayed silent, unable to speak, while Nathan smirked and patted my shoulder before leaving. Well, good luck with that. A few days later, I was summoned to the president's office. The entire time, I had been on edge, juggling my work while bracing for the worst. As I stood before Mr. Wallace, I had already half resigned myself to whatever fate awaited me. Even if I get sent back to field work, I'll make it work. I can still send money to my family. But contrary to my expectations, Mr. Wallace greeted me with a broad smile. Ryan, well done. We finalized the contract with the client Mr. Sawyer introduced us to, and not only that, they specifically requested that you remain the account manager. Keep up the good work. Caught completely off guard, all I could do was bow my head to Mr. Wallace in shock. I always make sure to stay in frequent contact with every client, even before signing a formal contract. Even with Mr. Sawyer's introduction, I had treated it no differently. No matter how certain or favorable the contract may be for us, I never change my approach. Last time, I made the worst mistake. I was late for an important meeting. Despite that, the client appreciated my previous efforts and decided to keep me as their point of contact. However, when I later visited them to formally greet them again, I found out that Mr. Sawyer had also put in a good word for me. That same day, I called Mr. Sawyer to express my gratitude. I didn't do anything. This is all the result of your hard work, Ryan. If anything, I should be the one thanking you. Malene told me you helped her. He had to be talking about that rainy day. It was nothing, really. How is she? I should have taken her to a hospital, but she's fine. It was just a mild sprain. Since that day, Malene and I hadn't been in touch, so I had been worried. But Mr. Sawyer's words brought me a sense of relief. Because of you, she opened up to me, Ryan. We finally had a real father-daughter conversation. I never realized just how much she was struggling with our family dynamic. In some ways, she and I are more alike than I thought. There was warmth in his voice, happiness mixed with a tinge of regret. That's only natural. Your family, after all. But I really don't think I did much. Even regarding her job, she seemed to think she wasn't needed in your company. And I didn't know what to say to that. I had sensed that this was what she had been wrestling with the most. Mr. Sawyer sighed. That's my fault. I wanted to respect my children's choices. My son joined the company because he wanted to, but I never wanted to force Malene to do the same. I thought saying nothing was the best way to give her freedom, but I had no idea she felt that way. You gave her the push she needed, Ryan. Because of that, I was able to talk to her not just as a president, but as her father. Thank you. A few days later, Malene reached out, and we made plans to meet. It had been a while since we had sat down together like this, and for some reason, the tension felt similar to when we first met. My dad probably told you already, but we finally talked as a family. As she spoke, her voice carried the same sense of calm happiness that Mr. Sawyer had the other day. It's thanks to you, really. Thank you. As I listened to her, I felt a mix of relief and something else, an odd sense of emptiness. I guess that means there's no reason for us to meet anymore. After all, the whole reason I got involved in the first place was because Mr. Sawyer asked me to look out for her. Now that she had reconciled with her family, my role was over. We probably wouldn't have much reason to see each other again. Actually, there's something I wanted to tell you. Noticing my distant expression, Malene hesitated before continuing. When I was little, I actually met you before. I blinked in surprise. When she was in first grade, her father's financial troubles led to her parents' divorce. She was brought by her mother to the countryside, where her mother's family lived. Even after returning to her aging parents, the mother and daughter still couldn't afford a comfortable life. In a small town where everyone knew everyone's business, a single mother returning home with a child was bound to become gossip. And as children tend to be, her classmates were brutally honest. She became a target for bullying, for not having a father, for being poor. And kids could be cruel. There was always a girl who stood up for her. And that girl had an older brother. Malene could never forget the sight of being pulled along by the hand as she cried from being bullied, sometimes carried on her brother's back on the way home. And I knew that scene too. A little sister who had been a handful back in my childhood. A girl who would sit beside her head lowered, crying every time I was called to school because of my sister. That girl was Malene, the very person standing before me now. I fell in love for the first time with that kind, strong back of yours. She looked up at me, her cheeks slightly flushed, but then she lowered her gaze. I realized it the moment we first met again, but I didn't want you to see how much I had changed. After my mother remarried, we moved here, and everything about my life shifted overnight. People whispered about me being a stepchild, and I started to lose faith in everyone, even my own family. Her voice wavered as she spoke, her head dropping lower. But even now, you're just as kind. You cared enough to get truly angry at me. You're still the same big brother I first loved. Looking at her now, on the verge of tears, I could see the shadow of the little girl she used to be. I reached out, gently placing my hand on her head, running my fingers through her sleek, beautiful hair. You haven't changed at all. I still can't leave you alone because you always seem like you're about to cry. And you're still the kind-hearted girl who was willing to face me despite all my flaws. Hearing my words, she suddenly lifted her head. Don't call yourself poor like that. Every time you belittle yourself, it hurts me. My father and all the people who have supported you until now never pitied you. You've built everything you have today with your own strength, with your kindness and integrity. In contrast to her earlier weakness, she now looked me in the eye and spoke with determination. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, sparkling in the light. You're as kind as ever, Malene. Thank you. Her unexpected words made my nose sting with emotion. Trying to cover it up, I forced a grin. I'm not a child anymore. I don't want to be the little sister you used to carry. I want to stand beside you as your partner, Ryan. Will you be my boyfriend? I thought her dignified eyes were beautiful. If you'll have me, then I'd be honored. Seasons changed, and spring returned once more. Since then, I had continued working hard, steadily building my career. This year, I was promoted to the main office. As for Nathan, after the incident, he was soon caught in a compliance scandal involving subcontractors in one of his projects. He was demoted. I later heard that he had been clashing with other project leaders as well. Perhaps management had been keeping an eye on him for a while. He had been a capable worker, but somewhere along the way, his obsession with surpassing those around him had caused him to self-destruct. Thinking about it, I couldn't help but feel a little regret. If we had managed to maintain a better relationship, maybe we could have pushed each other to grow instead of clashing. As for Malene, this spring, she finally graduated from university and entered the workforce. She didn't join her father's company. Instead, she pursued a career at a company she had chosen for herself. However, she told me that one day, she wanted to work alongside her brother and help support their father's company. And through it all, she has remained by my side. I want to visit your family with you, Ryan. I need to thank your sister for back then. Now that our relationship was serious and moving toward marriage, we planned to visit my hometown together. She seemed especially eager to see my sister again. That place must be filled with painful memories for her, I thought. Yet she said to me, "It's a place of memories with my first love, so as long as I'm with you, I'll be fine." She added with a smile. Feeling an overwhelming affection for her, I pulled her into my arms. I don't mind being called poor. No one's trying to steal my past away from me. I no longer feel ashamed of where I came from because every struggle, every hardship I endured, none of it was in vain. As of right now, you're fired. My manager abruptly announced my termination when I got to work. I had anticipated having another typical day, putting up with the typical snark from my boss, completing my work, and going back to my dilapidated, empty apartment. How did this happen? A woman was waiting for me when I arrived home after packing my belongings. You're home early. That's right. I didn't realize at the time that meeting this homeless woman would fundamentally alter my life. Ryan is my name. I work at an office. Well done today. I'm leaving. You're done for the day, Ryan. Would you like to join me for a drink? My coworker, who must have finished at the same moment, yelled out to me just as I was ready to go. I paused for a moment, considering what I was going to do that night. Nah, I'll pass. You're no fun, man. Come on. You don't even have a girlfriend, is there? At home, you're just going to be bored, right? In fact, the supermarket is having a bargain. I want to get more supplies. You sound so much like a housewife. Wow. In any case, I'll invite you again later. Sorry about that. Luckily, my refusal didn't seem to offend him. Ryan is my name. I'm an office worker who is 25 years old. I live a very impoverished existence. Evening grocery sales are my greatest ally. Naturally, I don't have a girlfriend while I live this way. I live a lonely, unmarried life. There's no need to hurry, I remind myself. I'm only 25. But to be honest, it's sort of disheartening that I've never had a girlfriend in my life. That being said, I can't just find one overnight. I keep working hard at my job and going about my everyday business because I need to organize my life first. I noticed the office was abnormally noisy one day when I got to work as usual. Good morning. What's happening? Oh, Ryan, I just heard. The company president passed away from an illness. The head of state. Like that. Even I find it hard to believe. Right now, the entire business is in disarray. Nobody is going to do much today. Yeah, if the president's gone, what happens to the company? Logically, his successor will take over as the new president, but our department manager, Mark, trailed off mid-sentence. After a brief pause, he forced a neutral expression and said, "Well, the company will probably survive somehow." What was that about? A few days after the president's passing, we were all called together for a meeting. A man we had never seen before appeared before us. "Everyone here. All right, let me introduce myself. I'm Brandon Mitchell, the son of the former president. From today onward, I will take over as the new president of this company." The president's son. I had no idea he had a son. Well, if that's the case, it makes sense that he takes over. But I noticed a few people around me looking uneasy. All of them were longtime employees, including Mark. What's going on? It didn't take long for me to find out. So, Mr. Mitchell made another unilateral decision. Yes. What should we do? Let's put that on hold for now. Take these documents to the department head and have them proceed with this instead. Understood. It had been a few days since Brandon took over as president. Ever since then, the company had been in constant turmoil. Mark, our department manager, looked completely exhausted. "Good morning. Are you all right?" "Oh yeah. Thanks, man. Mr. Mitchell is really giving us a hard time. Things seem pretty rough. Mr. Mitchell has no clue about running a company. I remember the previous president once muttering that he was worried about letting his son take over." What? Seriously? So that means our company's management right now is basically, it's running without him. The executives, senior managers, and department heads are all scrambling just to keep things afloat. I had no idea things were that bad. I'm sorry I didn't notice. If there's anything I can do to help, even just a little, let me know. Thanks. Just hearing that means a lot. I never imagined Mr. Mitchell would be this kind of person. Is our company really going to be okay like this? As I was mulling over my concerns, an even bigger problem was waiting for me. When I returned from an external sales visit, I saw Mr. Mitchell walking toward me from the front. "Hello, sir." "Yeah, hey. What's your name?" "Oh, Ryan." I never expected him to ask for my name. It's not like our company has a massive number of employees. I figured as president, he'd at least know that much. Mr. Mitchell stared at me, his gaze filled with an unpleasant sense of scrutiny. "Oh, what is it? How old are you? You can't be much younger than me, right?" "I'm 25. 25. So we're the same age, huh? And you're still just a regular employee?" "Heh." Did he just scoff at me? No. Maybe I imagined it. No way, right? Aren't you embarrassed? You're 25 and still a nobody, while I'm already a company president. Oh. Well, that's because your father was the previous president. It's all because of my own ability. A lowly employee like you could never understand my struggles. Spitting those words out, Mr. Mitchell walked off briskly. I just stood there, stunned. Did he just completely mock me? No, there's no doubt about it. He looked down on me. And this is our new president? Now I fully understood why Mark and the others were so stressed out. Even after that, Mr. Mitchell continued running the company however he pleased. The executives were constantly arguing, clearly overwhelmed, while the rest of us could only watch in concern. And for some reason, Mr. Mitchell started singling me out, pestering me at every turn. "Ryan, slacking off already at this hour." "No, it's my break time." Break time. That kind of lazy attitude is exactly why you're still just an entry-level employee. Hard work is what makes you valuable to a company. Right now, you're nothing but a leech. He nagged me about this kind of thing every single day, and my stress wasn't coming from work anymore. It was all because of Mr. Mitchell. Even though he couldn't even manage the company properly, how many times had I wanted to say that to his face? but in the end, I could never muster the courage to speak up. Instead, I just muttered a quiet, "I'm sorry," and escaped the situation day after day. Knowing him, saying the wrong thing could get me fired on the spot. Losing my job suddenly would be a huge problem. I'm already living in poverty, so I can't afford to lose my income. But the stress kept piling up. To clear my head, I started spending more time at a nearby park. I didn't do much there, but listening to the rustling trees and chirping birds helped soothe me. On weekends, I'd see kids playing, running around with boundless energy. Watching them always brought a small smile to my face. Since I couldn't afford any vacations, I had to find ways to unwind close to home. Then, one day, on my way home from work, I glanced at the park and noticed a woman sitting alone on a bench. It was already past 8:00 p.m., because I had stayed late at work. What was she doing here at this hour? She was dressed lightly despite the cold. She looked freezing. It's winter. I should check on her. Please don't call the cops on me. What are you doing here so late? Oh, I'm not doing anything really. You'll catch a cold dressed like that. And it's dangerous for a woman to be out alone at this hour. I'm fine. No matter what I said, she insisted she was okay. But she was clearly shivering, and there was something off about the way she stubbornly refused help. Was she in some kind of trouble? Really, don't worry about me. Oh. See, you're already sneezing. And the weather forecast says it's going to snow soon. Snow? You should warm up. Do you want to use my bath or something? As soon as I said it, I realized how weird it sounded. What am I saying to a woman I just met? She has every right to call the cops on me. Just as panic started to set in, the woman hesitated for a moment, then gave a small nod. If it's not too much trouble, I'd really appreciate it. Are you sure? Her response caught me completely off guard, and I ended up blurting out something weird again. No. That totally sounded like I had ulterior motives. Frantically waving my hands in front of me, I tried to recover. No, it's not a problem at all. My place is really close. Thank you. You're really kind. I mean, I couldn't just ignore a woman freezing out here. But not everyone would be so kind to a total stranger. Oh, well, thanks. Anyway, my place is this way. My voice came out louder than I intended, and I suddenly felt self-conscious. Flustered, I quickened my pace, leading her toward my apartment. While she was in the bath, I scrambled to clean up my place. I'd never had a girlfriend, so this was the first time I'd ever invited a woman over. And a single guy's apartment wasn't exactly the cleanest place. At the very least, I needed to make it look somewhat presentable. As I rushed to tidy up, I suddenly heard a voice behind me. Thank you for letting me use your bath. I feel warm and refreshed now. Oh, that's great to hear. I hadn't noticed in the dim light of the park earlier, but she was absolutely stunning. I just led a gorgeous woman into my apartment. My heart started pounding. Come to think of it, why was she alone in the park so late at night? I hope this isn't too personal, but why were you at the park by yourself? Well, sorry. If you don't want to talk about it, that's totally fine. I was just worried. I see. Thank you. Actually, I have nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. Wait, does that mean? Haha. Yeah, I guess you could say I'm homeless. She gave a small, troubled smile, and I was left speechless. How did this happen? Did she have no one to turn to? How long has she been in this situation? I had so many questions, but the first thing that slipped out of my mouth was, if you're okay with it, you can stay here. At least for now. Huh. You don't have anywhere to stay, right? But it's winter, and sleeping outside would be dangerous. I can't just leave you out there. And staying in a hotel would be expensive. Are you sure? Yeah, though I have to warn you, I'm pretty broke too, so I can't offer much in the way of hospitality. Haha, thank you. I'm really glad I ran into you at the park. May I ask your name? Oh, I never introduced myself. Sorry about that. I'm Ryan. And you? Ryan. My name is Sarah. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. I had invited her to stay in the heat of the moment, but after hearing she was homeless, I just couldn't turn her away. Yeah, this was an act of kindness. Just helping someone in need, right? Even though the idea of living under the same roof as a beautiful woman made me nervous, I kept telling myself it was the right thing to do. While I was at work, Sarah started taking care of the household chores. At first, I told her she didn't have to, but she insisted, saying, "I feel bad just staying here without doing anything." I guess it must have been uncomfortable for her to live here without contributing somehow. And honestly, coming home to find my chores already done made my life a lot easier. Hi, I'm home. Welcome back. I found a great deal on Napa cabbage today, so I made hot pot. Really? That's perfect. It was freezing outside today. Hot pot. Huh. Feeling warm inside, I headed to my room to change. It wasn't just the food. Having someone say, "Welcome home," when I walked through the door and not having to cook for myself. It all felt so nice. At first, I was constantly on edge around her, but now, I was getting used to having Sarah around. Wow, tonight's hot pot looks amazing. Heh, everything in it was on sale. Seriously, but it looks so fancy. You're really talented, Sarah. Thank you. I had left all the shopping and cooking to her, but knowing how broke I was, she always made sure to buy only discounted ingredients. Her thoughtfulness meant a lot to me, and since I was used to eating alone, meals with Sarah always felt so much more enjoyable. Ha! If only there were someone as considerate as you at my workplace. Sounds like your job is tough. Oh, well, yeah. Our previous president passed away recently, and the new one. Well, let's just say he's been causing a lot of problems. I see. But even so, you shouldn't push yourself too hard. Thanks, I appreciate it. Even when I accidentally let out complaints about work, Sarah never seemed annoyed. She just listened patiently. She was so kind. I never got around to asking, but how did she end up homeless? Talking to Sarah eased my mind a lot. Maybe that's why my performance at work started improving. Ryan, have you finished summarizing those documents? Yes, I have. I also made some adjustments to make them easier to read. What do you think? Adjustments? Oh, this is great. It took time to find specific information before, but now everything is right where it needs to be. Thanks. No problem. I just want to be helpful to you and the team. I'm really lucky to have a subordinate like you. Gradually, I started receiving more praise from Mark. Living with Sarah had taught me the importance of consideration. Would this make things easier to read? Would this help my coworkers? The more I put thought into my work, the more others appreciated it, and the more satisfied I felt with my own efforts. It helped in my day-to-day tasks, and even when I was out on sales visits. As my work performance improved, however, Ryan, you've been doing well lately, haven't you? Good evening, sir. As a junior employee, working hard should be a given. Don't start thinking you're special just because you're finally pulling your weight. I know that. Good. In that case, I have more work for you. Get these reports summarized by tomorrow. Wait, what? This isn't just one day's worth of work. I need time to gather the data. A capable employee like you should be able to handle it. And if you can't finish in a day, just stay at the office until it's done. You can't be serious. Besides, a low-level employee leaving on time, or after just an hour of overtime, is ridiculous. That's just laziness. This was beyond unreasonable, and from the looks of it, the work was actually urgent. Everyone else seemed too swamped to help. Fine. I guess I have no choice. I hated Mr. Mitchell, but I still cared about this company. The previous president had treated me well too. In the end, I didn't get to go home until past midnight. To my surprise, when I arrived, Sarah was still awake. "Welcome home. You're really late. Are you okay?" "Sarah, you're still up?" "Yes. You weren't coming home, so I was getting worried." "Sorry. I had no choice but to work overtime." "Did Mr. Mitchell make you do it again?" Yeah. You really see right through me, Not really. I just had a feeling. It's late, but do you still want dinner?" "Yeah. Sorry for making you wait." "It's fine. Don't worry about it. I'll warm it up right away." I felt bad for making her worry. How long is this going to continue? My only real source of stress was Mr. Mitchell. A few days later, when I arrived at work, my eyes widened at what I found on my desk, a termination notice. On my desk lay a termination notice. My name was carefully written on it, clear as day. There was only one person who could have done this. Grabbing the paper roughly, I stormed toward the president's office. "Mr. Mitchell." "Whoa, what's with the sudden shouting? What's the meaning of this? Leaving a termination notice on my desk." "A termination notice? This? You're the one who issued it, aren't you?" I thrust the paper toward him, but his expression remained puzzled. "I didn't do this." "Then who did? You're the only one who had it out for me." "Doesn't matter what you say. I don't know anything about it. Someone else must have done it." Was he really telling the truth? If this was his doing, I expected him to smirk and say something like, "Well, I guess you're fired then." But his reaction was far from that. It threw me off a little. So then, who put this on my desk? As I stood there, confused, Mr. Mitchell straightened up and spoke again. "Well, since the termination notice exists, you'll have to leave the company anyway. So even though you didn't issue it, you're still firing me." "That's right. If someone went through the trouble of preparing it, I have to respect that decision." This made no sense, but the document was real. Arguing any further would be pointless. With no other option, I packed up my belongings and left the company. How was I supposed to tell Sarah about this? That thought was all I could focus on. I never imagined I'd lose my job so suddenly. I'm home. "Welcome back. You're home early today." "Sorry. I got fired." I decided to be honest and tell her everything. How I found the termination notice on my desk this morning. How I confronted Mr. Mitchell only for him to claim he had nothing to do with it. And how, despite that, I was still let go because the document existed. After I finished explaining, Sarah gave me a small smile. "I'm sorry for how sudden this all was." That termination notice. I'm the one who prepared it." Her unexpected words left me gaping in shock as I stared at her. "Sarah, you did this. What do you mean?" "I've been keeping a lot from you. Let me explain everything from the beginning." "Okay. First, my name. My last name is Mitchell." "Mitchell? Wait, like the president?" "Yes, originally, I was supposed to inherit the company. But my younger brother, Brandon, forcibly took the position from me." "You two are siblings. Wait, then how did you end up being homeless? You were supposed to be the company's heir, right?" "At that time, I guess Brandon saw me as an obstacle and kicked me out of the house." "Kicked you out? That's awful. So that's why you were at the park." "Yes, but I'm really grateful I met you, Ryan. If I hadn't, I might have collapsed from the cold out there. I'm really glad I found you." I couldn't believe they were siblings. So all this time, I had been venting to Sarah about her own brother. I felt kind of bad. But then again, he was the kind of person who would throw his own sister out. Maybe I didn't need to feel guilty after all. I finally knew Sarah's true identity, but the mystery of the termination notice still remained. When I urged her to continue, she nodded. A few days later, I discovered that my father had secretly set up a new business for me. He did. Yes. He must have realized that Brandon was after the company and started the new business in secret. Brandon still hasn't figured it out. I see. So your father really cared about you. My father was always very perceptive. And so, I became the president of that company. Wait, what? You're president? Sorry for keeping that from you. No, it's fine. But then, why the termination notice? I heard all about how Brandon was mistreating you, bullying you and dumping work on you. I prepared the notice so I could recruit you. Suddenly, everything clicked. Because I had vented to Sarah so often, she knew all about how Mr. Mitchell treated me, and she wanted to help by bringing me into her company. Are you sure about this? Yes. After hearing so much from you, I know you're hardworking and thoughtful. I'd love for you to put your skills to use at my company. Yes, I'd love to. I never imagined things would turn out this way. Apparently, Sarah had already talked about me at her company, and everyone welcomed me warmly. Some even said, "So, you had to deal with that guy. That sucks. Want to go out for drinks? I'll treat you." They were good people. The work itself wasn't all that different from my previous job, which helped a lot. I didn't have to learn everything from scratch, and I could contribute right away. And best of all, there was no one dumping work on me or harassing me anymore. I could finally focus on my job. My efforts paid off, and Sarah's company started growing rapidly. What was once a small business soon became big enough to rival my former company. One day, I got a message from an old coworker. "I need to talk to you." For the first time in a while, I met up with my former coworker. "Yo, long time no see. I was surprised when I heard you left so suddenly, and even more surprised to find out you joined the former president's daughter's company." "Ah, yeah. Sorry that I hadn't told you anything. Ever since then, our company's been a mess. Everyone keeps comparing Mr. Mitchell to his sister, and he's been on edge nonstop. It's exhausting." "Really?" "Yeah, I mean, suddenly the company that's rising the fastest is the one run by the woman who should have been our president. Everyone's saying she would have been the better choice." "Well, that makes sense. People are fed up, man. By the way, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Is your company hiring?" "Ha. A lot of us just can't take working under Mr. Mitchell anymore. They all want to leave and join you." So that's what this was about. The upper management, who had been holding things together, must have finally reached their limit. "Got it. I'll talk to Sarah about it." That'd be a huge help. When I told Sarah, she responded immediately. "Of course, we'll gladly welcome them." Once I passed the message along, it became clear just how many people wanted to leave. One after another, they started transferring to our company. No way. Is this really happening? Even Sarah looked surprised. At this point, it might be faster for us to just buy out Brandon's company. Buy it out. Yes, if we merge, people won't even need to switch jobs. And in that case, who would be the president? We'll let the employees decide. Sarah smiled elegantly. Well, let's be real. The outcome was obvious. The companies merged, and when it came time to choose the president, the decision was made in an instant. Not a single person nominated Brandon. It was clear why. His behavior had finally caught up with him. No one wanted a reckless leader like him in charge anymore. Why? Maybe you should reflect on everything you've done. Ryan, this is your doing, isn't it? I know it is. Stop blaming others. Oh, and here, this is from the president. A termination notice. You have no trust from your employees. Your management was a disaster. And no one wants a president who only causes problems. So, goodbye. You can't do this. I'm the president. Former president. Now that you're an outsider, please leave immediately. According to what Sarah later told me, Brandon, with his lack of real-world experience, struggled to find another job. His poor reputation as an ex-president who got fired only made it worse. He brought it upon himself. He looked down on everyone, but in the end, without his father's help, he wasn't even worth a low-level employee. Honestly, he should be grateful he wasn't kicked out of his own house. As for Sarah, "Oh, Ryan, can you head home first? If you're still working, I'll stay and wait. You really don't have to. I need to stop by the supermarket on the way home anyway. We might as well go together, right? That's true. Okay, I'll wrap this up quickly." She was still living at my place. Well, to be more accurate, we had started dating. Since then, spending time together was fun, and she had always been my emotional support. Before I knew it, I had completely fallen for her, and it seemed like she felt the same way. So now, instead of being a guest, she was officially my living partner. There will be challenges ahead, but as long as we're together, I know we can overcome anything. Hello. Incompetent, go stand outside for 5 hours. Our manager Charles abruptly snapped at me. Charles was pressuring me not to take part in the presentation of a new product that we were doing in a big event hall today. I was instructed to wait in this enormous parking lot. You know, it's good for strengthening endurance. Oh, and you can jog a little if you'd like. I'd just begun jogging, so that was obviously a jab at me. This presentation might result in a $20 million deal if it is successful. Charles wanted all the praise to go to him. Why in the world am I working for someone like him? I felt completely lost after being abandoned. Then, though, I heard a call. Henry, the CEO of company ABC, one of our most important clients, was there. "All our contracts with you are terminated," Henry said after hearing what had transpired, going into the venue and looking for Charles. What? Charles's face went white. Only then did he realize how serious his error had been. William Parker is my name. Despite my hard work, I am a 40-year-old regular employee who hasn't been able to move up the corporate ladder. Maybe I haven't been promoted because I'm not that strong. I've been weak all my life. I have frequently missed school since I was a child because of illness. I had several surgeries because of a heart problem I had from birth. However, I'm completely well now. I will always be grateful to my parents for raising me and supporting me over the years. I set out to work hard in my studies and get a solid job because I wanted to pay them back. I relocated to Chicago and began living alone after receiving my college acceptance. I joined Hamilton Company after graduating and looking for a career. This business, which produces parts for medical equipment, also deals with parts for thermometers and health scales, which are things I use to depend on. I was quite excited to work here because of this. But I discovered the reality once I joined. Those who were athletic and hard-driving thrived here. It was oppressive. I had to down a beer at the welcoming party shortly after I joined. I had never encountered this type of hazing in my liberal arts group in college, and I didn't expect to now that I'm an adult. The senior staff began encouraging me and gave me a beer mug. To stay awake around here, you need to drink this much. Hurry up and chug, chug. The senior managers only chuckled while observing. Drinking was my only option. I also threw up in a bathroom for the first time ever. The situation was the same for the other new hires. I became aware that I had joined a company that was a nightmare. However, it was too late. Back then, it was standard to stick it out for at least 3 years after joining a company, so I held on. Just like my fellow new hires, we figured we'd get used to it eventually. Some of us clicked with the senior staff and moved up the ladder quickly, but those who couldn't keep up or lacked stamina either quit or just endured. I was the latter, gritting my teeth and hanging in there. I didn't want to disappoint my parents by giving up over something like this. Even when overloaded with work or forced into pointless overtime, I just put my head down and focused on getting through it. Those teeth-clenching days continued, and before I knew it, I was 40. My days were still packed, leaving no time for a relationship. Now I'm in the sales department. Maybe they thought I was tough since I'd been here so long, so they assigned me to the most demanding department in the company. My current boss, Charles, is 3 years older than me. He joined 5 years ago, apparently a big shot from an Ivy League school, always brimming with enthusiasm. Unlike me, the perpetual low-ranking employee, he climbed to manager in no time and was always hard on me. "Hey, William, you're driving for tomorrow's golf outing." "Tomorrow? It's Saturday. I promised to take my dad to the hospital." "You idiot. It's an important client meeting. Your old folks can wait. Probably just gonna be chatting with the doctor, right?" My dad's had gout for years. Once a month, I take him to his appointments, an hour drive each way. I glared at Charles, wanting to tell him he didn't know a thing. But I couldn't defy him. I'd learned the hard way that defiance meant being forced to do 100 squats. "Hey, Dad. Yeah, sorry. I can't take you this time." He laughed it off over the phone. "It's all right. I'll just call a cab this time." "How's your work, William?" "Yeah, it's okay." I could only respond weakly. "I see. You're always working hard. Thank you." My parents, aware of how busy I was with work, always expressed their concern whenever we met. I wondered what I could do to ease their worries. I thought about switching jobs, but as a perpetually low-ranking employee, I worried I'd be undervalued in the job market and my income might drop. That hesitation kept me from taking the leap. So instead, I decided to focus on building my stamina to fit in better with the company's culture. These days, terms like metabolic syndrome felt a bit too relatable. I decided to start with light jogging. I bought running gear and shoes, starting by looking the part. I began with early morning runs at a large park nearby. Surprisingly, it felt pretty good. In the early morning, the park was filled with people walking their dogs or jogging like me. The air felt refreshing, and I enjoyed the satisfaction of working up a good sweat. While I hated meaningless exercises forced on me, moving for my own health felt satisfying. About a month into my early morning runs, someone caught my attention. There was a woman who ran at the same time as me. We'd pass each other in the park and exchange nods as jogging companions, and she was stunningly beautiful. Still, I thought if I came across as having ulterior motives, she'd avoid me, so I kept it to a friendly nod. Then one day, something happened. While running in the park as usual, I found her collapsed on the ground. She was unconscious, but still breathing. I immediately called for an ambulance. Fortunately, her condition wasn't serious. It was just anemia. While waiting for her checkup, I anxiously stayed by her side. When she regained her composure, she shyly thanked me. "I'm so sorry for troubling you." "I'm just glad you're okay." She introduced herself as Kate Summers. She said she was 29, but she looked even younger. Smiling, she warmly remarked, "I see you running here often. Actually, I've been curious about something." "What?" Her words made my heart skip a beat. "The music I always hear from your earbuds. It's from the British band B, isn't it? I'm a big fan, too." "Wow, you know B. That's amazing for someone your age." "That's why I wanted to talk to you sometime." It turned out we shared the same favorite band. We hit it off, talking enthusiastically about music. Then the sound of hurried footsteps interrupted us. "Kate, are you okay?" "Oh dear." Kate's father hurried over, clearly flustered. He was sweating, probably from worrying so much. "It's just anemia." "But Dad, what about your work?" "Don't worry. I told my assistant to handle things for now." I'm a freelancer, so it's fine for me. But your company is important. That's when Kate suddenly realized. By the way, William, is your job okay? Oh, well, probably. I had notified the office that I'd be late because I was helping someone in need. It was the truth, and I wasn't ashamed of it, but I knew Charles wouldn't accept it. When I rushed to work after making sure Kate was okay, Charles was, as expected, furious. William, what's the meaning of being 2 hours late? I informed the office. Sorry, but someone had collapsed. Is that your job? Leave that to paramedics. Maybe he was right. Perhaps I had overstepped. But when I called the ambulance, Kate was still unconscious, and I couldn't help but worry. I knew what it was like to suffer from illness. I just wanted to make sure she was safe until the end. I apologize. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. Words aren't enough. Do 100 squats. What? I was taken aback by the sudden command. But Charles pointed to the wall and barked, Do them over there. You can sit at your desk after you're done. Yes, sir. With no choice, I faced the wall and started squatting. I could hear my coworkers snickering around me. That guy really doesn't get it, does he? No wonder he's stuck as a bottom-rung employee. I'd hate to end up like that. Only those who fit the mold remained in this company. The number of people looking down on me had increased significantly over the years. 23, 24, 25. Even as my body screamed in pain, I gritted my teeth and kept going. I wasn't going to let this break me. A few months later, Hamilton Company was buzzing with excitement like never before. We had been invited to a trade show featuring healthcare-related companies and manufacturers. While we attended every year, this time we were selected to participate in the new product presentation event during the show. Only a handful of companies got this chance, and the office was electric. Charles, chosen as the leader for the presentation, was bursting with energy, rallying the team with his booming voice. All right, listen up. This event, with so many international visitors, is one we absolutely must succeed in. The goal is $10 million. No, $20 million. The team for the new product presentation was assembled, mainly consisting of top talents from the sales and development departments. Surprisingly, my name was also on the list. I was tasked with creating the slideshow and structuring the presentation. You're good at preparing presentation materials, right? I'm counting on you. Yes. To think Charles would actually compliment me like that. Years of hard work sometimes do pay off. Moved by his words, I poured my heart and soul into planning the presentation flow and creating the slideshow. Looking back, I might have enjoyed my work the most during this time. I even found myself talking to Kate about work, which was rare for me. Wow, William, you're really capable. No, not at all. But this project is something I'm genuinely excited about. Do your best. During our early morning runs, I chat with Kate and recharge my energy. With that, I found my work more fulfilling than ever. But then, on the day of the event, disaster struck. I was driving a van to transport large booth props and product samples. After unloading everything and checking the items, I was about to enter the venue when Charles returned to the parking lot and called out to me. Oh, you're fine staying here. What? Just hand over the keys. Taking his belongings from the van, Charles turned his back on me. In a cold voice, he said, Your job's done. Thanks for your effort. What do you mean? Like I said, you're good at making materials. That's all we needed. We don't need you for the presentation. It felt like being hit in the head with a hammer. Surely this can't be happening. Until the event ends, stand outside for 5 hours. Charles had no intention of letting me participate in the event. Toying with the van keys in his hand, he laughed. Staying outside will help you build some stamina. Oh, and feel free to go for a little run if you want. It was clearly a jab at my newfound running habit. Wait, I've worked so hard for this day. It's pointless. You don't even have a participant badge. Without this, you can't enter the venue." He showed me his badge holder hanging around his neck, and I was left stunned. "Without this, the security at the entrance won't let you in," Charles said with a smirk. After all the effort I put in for the presentation, left alone in the parking lot, I stood there, unable to move. Since Charles took the keys, I couldn't get into the car and had no choice but to wait outside. This area had nothing else around except for the event hall. As I stood there, stunned and dejected, someone suddenly called out to me from behind. 3 hours later. Finally, Hamilton Company's new product presentation began. When the company's name was announced, Charles walked up to the stage. I watched from the corner of the venue with someone beside me. Charles's presentation on stage was a disaster. He stammered, sweating profusely, unable to speak coherently. What happened to the overconfident attitude he had earlier? But this was entirely his own doing. He created the hostile atmosphere, so I didn't feel any obligation to help him. "Looks like it's over." Yes, I've never seen Charles like this before. The man, Henry Summers, the CEO of Company ABC and Kate's father, smiled warmly. People like him are surprisingly weak when it really matters. As a seasoned CEO, Henry exuded an air of confidence. When he smiled, I couldn't help but notice how much he resembled Kate, reminding me they were indeed father and daughter. The person who had approached me in the parking lot earlier was Henry. When I saw him, I was shocked. He was the same man I'd met at the hospital, Kate's father. Since Company ABC wasn't my client, I had no idea about this connection. What a coincidence. Company ABC was one of Hamilton Company's most important clients, contributing significantly to our revenue. Henry told me he had witnessed the interaction between Charles and me earlier. That was awful. Is your boss always like that? Yes. Embarrassed to have him witness such a shameful scene, I couldn't help but feel humiliated. But Henry gently placed a hand on my shoulder. I've heard about Hamilton Company's toxic culture before, but seeing it in person, it's not just unethical. It's straight-up harassment. It's hard to believe these are supposed to be professionals. It's really embarrassing. You don't have to feel ashamed. You're a good person, and you helped someone in need. His kind words caught me off guard, and I looked up to see his warm, encouraging expression. These days, it's rare to find someone who genuinely cares enough to help like that. As someone who's been a CEO for years, I can't just stand by when a person like you is being treated unfairly. Henry handed me an extra badge from Company ABC and escorted me inside. I entered with it and quietly observed Charles's actions, making sure not to be noticed by my coworkers. Henry approached Charles, who was busy preparing at the booth. From a distance, I could tell he was scolding Charles for how he had treated me earlier. Charles, caught off guard by the sudden reprimand, tried to laugh it off. "Please, stay out of another company's business. I'm really busy right now." "But don't you think that was far too much?" Henry pressed Charles harder than I expected. Perhaps angered by this, Charles's tone grew harsher. "Enough. Just get lost now." "Oh? Is that how you treat a major client?" For a moment, Charles froze, but it seemed he couldn't stop himself anymore. Knowing Charles's impulsive nature, once he got angry, I watched their exchange nervously. "Without our parts, your company wouldn't even be able to make products. Don't forget that we're the ones supplying you." Charles had said something absolutely outrageous, speaking down to a client with such arrogance. Even someone as good-natured as Henry couldn't hide his anger. His expression hardened, and he replied in a cold voice. "We're the ones supplying you, huh? That's quite the arrogant attitude, just as I'd expect from Hamilton Company. In that case, consider all future contracts canceled." "What? Why are you so surprised?" "If you don't want to supply us, we'll simply end our dealings with your company." Suddenly, Charles's face turned pale. Then, he finally realized the other companies around him had been watching the entire exchange. So Hamilton Company put someone like that in charge? Treating a subordinate like that, it's practically middle school level bullying. Charles was overwhelmed by the mix of sneers and contemptuous looks directed his way. For the first time, he seemed to realize how others perceived him. Work in the business world is built on human connections. Who would want to work with an arrogant, condescending company? Hamilton Company's reputation had been tarnished, or rather, it had always been tarnished, but the brazen staff had been masking it with sheer bravado. However, when faced with someone genuinely dedicated to their work, their facade crumbled, just like Charles, now trembling and pale. Then came the new product presentation. Perhaps shaken by the earlier incident, Charles's heart wasn't in it. His voice lacked confidence, and his nervousness and anxiety were palpable. With that, the presentation I'd worked so hard on wouldn't resonate with the audience. All that effort I put into the materials, wasted. What? You made that presentation? Henry picked up on my muttered comment and looked at me in surprise. Yes, I worked hard on it for today, but there's nothing I can do now. I see. I feel bad for you. No, it's okay. Honestly, I feel a sense of closure now. Just having Henry's support was enough to lift my spirits. But Henry, looking apologetic, said quietly, "What about you? Won't this make things harder for you moving forward?" "It's nothing new. I'll endure it like always." When I answered, Henry gave a wry smile. "Your perseverance is both your strength and your weakness." What? Listen, William. Don't pour your effort into the wrong place. With that, he pulled a notebook and pen from his jacket pocket and began writing something quickly. He tore off a sheet of paper and handed it to me firmly. "This is the phone number for our HR department. If you'd like, go ahead and schedule an interview." What? "Our team is strict, but I think you'll do just fine." With a reassuring pat on my shoulder, Henry walked away. I stood there, still staring blankly at the slip of paper. Switching jobs. It was something I had been considering for a long time, but I kept hesitating, thinking that someone like me, stuck as a low-level employee, wouldn't succeed anyway. Still, don't pour your effort into the wrong place. Henry's words echoed in my mind. 3 months later, I finally resigned from Hamilton Company. It had been difficult to get them to accept my resignation, but with advice from the Labor Standards Office, I managed to handle it smoothly. "You won't last anywhere else." I let his words go in one ear and out the other. If anything, my tolerance for pettiness had grown thanks to him. Besides, I had already proven him wrong. I had successfully passed the interview with Company ABC and secured my next job. News of my acceptance quickly reached Kate. As a familiar running companion, she congratulated me enthusiastically. "Oh, congrats. I can't believe you're going to be one of my dad's employees now." I was surprised, too. Life works in mysterious ways, doesn't it? Kate looked down slightly, a shadow crossing her face. "I met you first, but I guess some connections just aren't meant to be." What? Oh, it's nothing. Finally, the day arrived for me to start at Company ABC. Instead of being placed in the sales department, I was assigned to the manufacturing department. There, I took on responsibility of creating documents and materials related to product data. In essence, I was in more an administrative role, but it seemed to suit me well. The documents I created gained a reputation for being easy to understand, and I became involved in producing various materials across the company. Since I used to work in sales, word spread that I could also create presentation materials, and soon, I had so many salespeople coming to me for advice that I could barely keep up with my own work. At the company's welcome party, I had the chance to speak with Henry, who praised me with a smile. "When I saw the presentation materials you made back then, I thought you'd be a great fit for this kind of work. Turns out your skills are even better than I imagined. You've been a huge help." Well, Henry, lately, the sales team has been asking me for so much help that it's getting overwhelming. That's a good problem to have. Why don't you host a workshop for the sales team on creating presentation materials? I thought that was a great idea and decided to hold the workshop. The participants took it seriously and absorbed the material well. I'd never imagined that my hard work would bear fruit like this. It was around this time that I finally understood the meaning behind what Henry had told me back then. Don't pour your effort into the wrong place. That must have referred to things like this. Hamilton Company had forced me to endure pointless things like golf outings and endless swats in the name of team building. There was no way I could thrive in a company like that. The fact that I hadn't been promoted for so many years wasn't my fault. It was simply because I didn't align with the company's toxic culture. Now that I realized this, I was able to contribute meaningfully to those around me. It might have taken me a while to figure it out, but it's never too late to start fresh. I decided to keep giving my best effort moving forward. Seeing how much happier I was after switching jobs, my parents looked on with relief. Then, one day, I heard some rumors about Hamilton Company. Apparently, there had been a massive wave of resignations minus 50 employees in all. Mainly from the sales department, had left, dealing a significant blow to the company. Since our company no longer worked with Hamilton Company, we weren't affected. But the companies that still had contracts with them must have been in trouble. Orders they had expected to receive weren't fulfilled, and deadlines were missed. The mass resignations not only hurt Hamilton Company, but also had a ripple effect on other businesses. I had the chance to talk to Henry about this, and he shared his thoughts with a stern expression. You probably didn't know, but Hamilton Company's toxic culture was infamous in the industry. Harassment was rampant, and their employees' behavior wasn't just intimidating. I had my concerns, but since we had been working with them for so long, it was hard to make a clean break. But then he glanced at me and added, "Watching how they treated you helped me decide. If a company doesn't treat its people like people, it's not worth doing business with." Is that so? And as expected, a company that doesn't value its employees was ultimately abandoned by them. The responsibility fell heavily on their sales director. I wondered what was going to happen to him. Henry's words brought Charles' face to mind. Last I heard, he was still the sales director at Hamilton Company. How was he handling the aftermath of all this? The answer soon reached me through industry rumors. Charles had been forced to resign to take responsibility for the mass resignations. It was likely a decision made by the higher-ups, but forcing someone to resign in such a way still reflected poorly on the company. It only confirmed how flawed Hamilton Company's culture truly was. I had seen Charles on the platform of the station once. He wasn't in his usual suit, but dressed casually, sitting on a bench and drinking in the middle of the day. Next to him was a crumpled job magazine. Just by looking at him, it was clear that things weren't going well. Charles was also probably someone who kept getting things wrong. If only he could have channeled that energy in the right direction. If only he hadn't put his effort into the wrong places. Surely, after all the things he'd done to me, I didn't have any words to offer him. I turned my back and quietly walked away. A few years later, I would hear that Hamilton Company had gone under. But at the time, I had no way of knowing. For now, I was able to start fresh, and for that, I couldn't thank Henry enough. There was also something else I wanted to thank him for, raising such a wonderful daughter. As usual, I had gone for a run before work, and afterward, Kate and I sat on a bench to take a break. Recently, we'd started bringing food for each other and having breakfast together. Today, I brought bagels, and she had a sandwich. As we were finishing our meal, Kate suddenly looked up at me and asked, "William, did you know there's an 80th anniversary event for B coming up? If you're interested, would you like to go with me?" I was startled by her sudden invitation. "Really? I'd love to go, but are you sure you want to go with me?" "Well, we're both fans, aren't we? And because I'd like to go with you." Kate's cheeks turned red as she said this. Could this be what they call a date? Maybe my springtime wasn't as far off as I thought. When I gave her a small nod, Kate beamed with a bright smile. That's great. We'll just have to make sure my dad doesn't find out. Wait, Henry? Yeah, he can be pretty strict about my relationships. Now that you mentioned it, Henry was the kind of man who would drop everything and rush to her side the moment she needed him. He clearly treasured his daughter. Am I about to get myself into something big? But with Kate smiling at me like that, I couldn't say no. Facing Henry someday would be inevitable, but for now, I decided to put that aside. I simply enjoyed laughing happily with Kate.